Hello everyone, and welcome to the Tech Media Maven YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated towards simplifying tech topics and providing tech solutions to you. Today we'll be continuing on our Excel course. If you're just joining us, it will be important for you to know that this isn't the first video associated with this course, but you might not have missed much. Essentially, the first video focused on the fundamentals, trying to understand the Excel layout, what a workbook is, and all the different things you see on your Excel screen. Today, we're building a step further, and we're going into data entry and editing. So, I hope you find this video useful, and if you have not, like, share, and subscribe. So, we start by creating a blank workbook because I want us to all do this together. So you click on the blank workbook over there and click create. Okay. So now we have a blank workbook and we're going to start entering data into this. If you remember in the previous video, we talked about this layout, and just to give a brief summary, this is what they call the sheet, which is labeled down here. We could add multiple sheets. You could add multiple sheets by clicking on the plus button, and you could name the sheet whatever you want. It's like how you have, this is a book and this is a sheet of paper in the book. So you can name the sheets whatever you want. For today, I'm naming this data entry and editing. We might be using this workbook in future tutorials, so it will be good to name it properly so that it also guides you when you want to use it in more advanced tutorials. And at the top, you have the ribbons, and the ribbons are categorized into groups. In the previous video, we investigated what each ribbon contains and the different uses of some of the functions categorized in the groups. So today, we're going to be creating a scenario for our data entry so that we don't just start entering random data. We're trying to build a storyline here. And work with me with this scenario. You are an admin staff in, let's say, school, a university school, and you're focused on creating a database of students who are at the point of internship and have gone out to seek employment and work during that internship. They have gone out, they have come back, and you're trying to gather the necessary data surrounding these students and their internship program. So, the first thing you want to capture is the serial number. So in this case, we'll say number 1. I might have to fast forward it at some point, but for the typing sake, but I'm just going to show you the first few ones. Number 1, let's say the name. I will use my name for number 1, Ikenna Uche, or just Ikenna is fine. The next thing we want to capture is the department, my department. Okay, we're going to use one uniform department in this case. So let's say maths and computer science. The next thing we want to capture is how many hours, what was the hourly wage? Well, let's just give a random thing for me. In my case, let's assume I was $15 per hour. And how many work hours in a week, or how many work hours in total, depending on, we're just being creative in this sense. So I would say, let's say 170 work hours. And next thing we want to know is how much, what was the income? We'll get to this in future. So yeah, number 1, I guess we'll get like 15. So number 2, I'm just going to give a random name, Julia. Let's skip this and go to number of hours worked. Let's say she worked for hourly wage was $13 per hour. How many hours did she work for? 170. Okay, no, I think this should be left blank for now. Okay, number 3, go to another random name. John. He worked for 15 hours and his total hours was 170. 170. Okay, now let's go to some of the basics of what I want us to cover. Now I'm looking at maybe capturing about 15 to 20 of these records, and there are easier ways to do some of these things. For starters, yes, I might have to type the name every once in a while, but I noticed that this data speaks to one uniform department, and that department is the Maths and Computer Science department in this illustration. So we're going to work on understanding how to do things like copying, pasting, creating, undoing, inserting, and what have you. So we're going to just go through it on a practical level. Let me first start by writing all the names I want to write, because that's going to be the most manual part of this exercise. So, which other random name? Tony. Okay, let's get creative. Ronaldo. Yes, Ronaldo is in my department. Mercy is also in my department. Suarez, definitely in my department. Varane, definitely in my department. Who else? Robert, in my department. Serena. Who else? Who else? Hannah. Who else? I wish I could hear some of the thoughts you guys have and just key into those names. Moses, Frank, Beckham, Victoria, and maybe one more, Rihanna. Yep. So these are dummy names. These are dummy names. And so the first thing I'm going to show you is, now, the way Excel is, you can do things in several ways. I could either choose to be naming these manually for 5, but Excel has a way of auto-filling this information for me depending on what I want. So now, if you notice, there's a pattern in the serial number. 1 after 1, 2 after 2, 3 after 3, 4 after 4, 5. I could use Excel to autofill these numbers in the pattern which Excel observes, which means there's a serial arrangement of this pattern. All I have to do is, first of all, pay attention to the cursor and how it's displayed. I highlight all these up to the last point so that it examines this range, this selection range, and figures out the pattern that it needs to autofill. And I come to this bottom right corner. I'm going to show you something. Notice how the cursor has changed. By the time I come to the bottom right corner, the cross turns to a dark cross. I go out, it turns to a white cross. I go back, it turns to a black cross. So now I select the selection range once it's at this black cross, and I drag it down to where I wish for it to stop, and I release my selection. Voila! You see, it has automatically filled my serial numbers for me up until Rihanna, which is 16. Now, this is autofill using the pattern recognition. It figured out that if I had written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then the most likely numbers to come should be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. But for the department is Maths and Computer Science. And that's the only thing that I want that this department speaks to. These are all imaginary people who are under a university department called Maths and Computer Science, and they went for an internship program, and we're all working during the internship program. So I could either use the copy function, which I had shown us in the previous video. To copy this, you can go to the ribbon, home ribbon, and you see the copy, and click copy, and come down here and click paste. But that would mean I will have to repeat this for all the remaining 14 cells. Now, I have a shorter cut to use with the keyboard with regards to this copy and paste. I could also decide to use that shortcut in this sense and just click on Ctrl C, or if you're using a Mac system, Command C. You see it selects the cell, and I come to the cell I wish to paste. And if you're using a Windows system, Ctrl V to paste, or a Mac system, Command V to paste. And voila, it pastes it. Now let's try something. What if I want to repeat this paste on multiple cells? Ctrl C was to copy, Ctrl V, paste. Voila. So we see a shortcut here. So that means I could as well copy the remaining empty cells, Ctrl C to copy, and Ctrl V to paste. Voila. So that was really time saving rather than pasting or typing it individually. I have been able to find a shortcut to apply this to all the relevant cells. Okay, what if I wish to delete these cells? What if I wish to delete it? It may be in a situation where I realize I didn't spell computer science properly and I would like to make changes to the computer science, or I feel the computer science is too long and I would prefer to make it something like, let's start with this one, maths and computer. Let's just turn it to CSC for short. And I would like to replace all this with that. Or maybe they are for different departments and I mistakenly pasted it. Now, I could either decide to be clicking on the delete button in my keyboard to delete this manually, or I could use a function, the erase function, which is located. I could use the erase function, which is located here. So you can see under the erase function, you have several things: clear all, clear formats, clear content. So I can come back here and highlight all the cells that I would like to take out and use the erase function to clear all. So it clears all the information within those selected cells. I click on it and voila, everything I had clicked on becomes empty and blank for entry again. So I would like to show you another way of using the autofill function. Remember, we use the autofill function to complete this number in a serial manner, but I could also use the autofill function to replace or copy all this back to this instead of using the Ctrl C. So similar to what I did, I come to the bottom right corner where you notice the plus changes to a black plus, and I hold it and I drag, and you notice it changes, it copies everything and repeats them in all the cells. Now I'm going to come to a blank space here and show you the difference between these two things, because you might be confused. Why is it that in one case the autofill was able to repeat the numbers serially, and why is it in one other case it merely just repeated the information like a copy and paste? I'm going to show you two instances. On this instance, I'll write 1. On the next cell, I'll write 2. On the next cell, 3. And on the next cell, 4. And in this other instance, I'll just write 1. Now, want to notice how the autofill responds in these two scenarios. If I highlight all this information up to 4 and use the autofill and drag it, maybe I want it to stop here, what does it do? It brings out a serial number according to the pattern above. But if I choose just this cell, or let's just say I put 1 and I put 1, and the idea is I want all these cells to have just 1. So I keep writing 1, but I'm now too lazy to keep going and I want to use the autofill. In this case, rather than highlighting everything like this, I just click on one of the cells. So now the pattern I'm showing it is just one cell as against 4 cells where it had 4 different informations to try and understand the pattern. And all it knows is 1. And I drag it to that same space and you realize all its copies are just 1s. So the autofill function can be used in different ways. It can be used to autofill numbers in a serial manner. It can be used to repeat the same information. It all depends on what you highlight before you drag the autofill. So now that we have understood that, I can now use the erase function. So if I don't want to use the erase function, if I don't want to come to the ribbon here to use the erase function, I can always right click. And when you see right click, you see clear contents, and I clear this contents. I come here, right click, and clear contents. If you notice, rather than also going to these ribbons here where you have copy and paste, I could also do the same thing here and right click and copy, or right click and paste. Yeah. So these are the different ways. Remember, I told you there's several different ways to do what you want to do in Excel. You just need to understand what you're more familiar with, and over time probably adapt to faster ways. So now remember, this column was meant for the hourly wage. But now, if you're just also watching this video up to this point, you realize, at some point I forgot what is supposed to be here and what is supposed to be here. Like just looking at the figures 15 and 170, I really don't know what is supposed to denote again. And I'm now realizing, oh, I should have created a header. The header would have simplified the entire process for me. So that brings us to the next phase of how to create and insert columns and rows. So ideally, to make this data more intuitive, a header would be necessary to label out what each column represents. To create a header, I need to put a row above number 1, which is Ikenna, and create a column and name the columns accordingly. To do that, you go to the row number. In this case is number 1. I click on it, I right click, and if you scroll with me, you'll notice where you have insert. So the insert button inserts a row just above it. I can also do the same thing for any other row that I want to insert something above it. I go to insert, and the insert button inserts a row just above it. If I want to, like right now, this order no longer makes sense because it breaks the serial order. And I realized, okay, I had wanted to insert a row, but now I've inserted 2 rows, one intentionally and one by mistake. What do I do? There's a function called the undo function. Now, the undo function can be gotten from different ways. The easiest is through the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Z, or if you're using a MacBook, Command-Z. So I hold the Control or Command button and click on the Z letter, Command-Z or Ctrl-Z, and voila, it goes back to the status quo. So now I have my header, and I can now decide to name it what I wish to. So I'll write the first header will be student number. Skip to the next cell. I will call this name because that's what it speaks to. Skip to the next cell. I'll call this department. Let's say department type or department name. Skip to the next one. This would be called as hourly wage. And skip to the next cell, and I'll say number of hours worked or spent working. Spent working. Okay, now I also want to add a different column here, and I want to call that total income. Total income. Okay. Now, if you look at this table, it's starting to make more sense now. But there are certain things that I'm uncomfortable with. So, for instance, I created a header, and yes, the header helps me understand the data and what lies in each column better. But I'm also noticing that some of the labelings are off. There are some labels that are longer, and I can't see everything about it. So, for instance, if you look at the formula bar here, you see department name, but here I only see department. If you look at the formula bar here, I see number of hours spent working, but here I only see number of hours. What if it means something different? What if it distorts the meaning? Now, to fix this, I can either do it the manual way, which would be to come to whichever column I feel isn't showing enough of what I want, hold the borderline between it and drag it to maybe whatever I feel more comfortable with. But imagine a situation where I have probably about 20 different column headers. Will I be doing this individually? Well, I could, but there's an easier way. So I click Control or Command Z to go back to the status quo, and now I'll show you what is the easier way. So I will start to do this. You go to the letters on the column and highlight all the columns that have your cell or all the columns you wish to adjust. Then remember, in the manual way, we had to come to the borderline in between to click it and drag it. But now in this automated way, Excel will automatically adjust each column to the width that it needs. So to do that, you just come to any of these cells here, find a borderline, that thing borderline in it, and double click it. And voila, everything has adjusted to its natural width. So now you see department is now department name, and number of hours spent working has automatically adjusted. So if I also add maybe number of hours spent working per month, see, per month is not visible again. I do the same thing. I highlight all of it, and I could even come to A and do the clicking here. Double click and see it automatically shows. Yeah. So that right now we've covered entering data, we've covered okay, maybe we have not covered editing the data. To edit the data is really simple. Let's say I want to change this number of hours spent working. You just double click the cell and it comes into the edit mode, and you change it to whatever you want to change it. So I could change this 13 now to 14. Click enter and it has updated. I've shown you how to copy data. I've shown you how to paste data. I've shown you how to clear the contents of a cell. I've shown you how to autofill data. I've shown you how to undo data. I've shown you how to insert rows. Now let me show you how to insert columns. So it's also as simple as inserting the row. In the case of the row, we had to click the particular row we wanted to insert. In the case of the column, you just click the particular column you wish to insert a column beside and click the insert button. The Excel uses for columns, it uses towards the left. So if I want to insert a column between column F and column G, which is number of hours spent working per month and total income, I have to come to column G, click on it, right click, sorry for not referencing that, and I click on the insert button. You see? So, but for now, I don't need this column. So I just wanted to show you how to insert a column. So I now undo it using Ctrl Z or Command Z, depending on your system. I've shown you how to adjust column widths automatically. Now, the next thing we're going to do is how to, well, before then, maybe I should just pre-fill some of the data as well. But I'm going to show you next how to find data and probably replace information on the data. So to do that, let's say I mistakenly filled or used the autofill to put 15 hours on all this information. And I was now going through the record and I realized, oof, what I felt was 15 hours was actually 15.5 hours, and I've omitted the 0.5. Now, what I could do is I could come to the find and select icon over here, click on it, and go to replace. If I just want to find an information, let's say there's a particular student and I want to understand, is he part of my record? I can click the find, click the student's name, let's say Beckham, and click find all. Okay, sorry, I forgot to pass through a process. I could highlight the entire cell or the entire sheet. To do that, what I just did, I clicked Control A. Control A is to highlight it, or I could manually just highlight the range of the data I wish to work with, and come to the find and click on Beckham. Cannot find what you're looking for. My bad. Okay, let's click on this column which has the names and use the find. I don't know if you noticed, but I made a spelling error. So I spelled Beckham as Beckham, and while here is written as Beckam. My bad. So let me do it again. Let me highlight the range. Yeah, we're all humans, right? And click on the find. And now I did this and remove the H, sorry, and find all. And voila, it provides the data entry for Beckham, cell B15. If you look at it, cell B15 is accurate. That's Beckham. Okay, now I've showed you how to use the find. Now let's say we want to use the replace. In this case, it's not Beckham I'm looking for. It is 15, the hourly wage. I want to replace what I thought was 15 hours to 15.5 hours. So now I remove Beckham and write 15 and replace with what? 15.5. And I say I could either decide to replace it individually, but in this case I say replace all. And it says all finished. We made 16 replacements. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my goodness. Who can tell me where I made a mistake again? It's not only picked the 15 on this column, but it went ahead to pick the 15 that is attached to Victoria, which was not my intention. So now, imagine this was a larger data set that had other 15s scattered around the sheets. How would I have fended with this? Now, that leads me to the part which I should have done in the first place, which was I should have limited the selection range to just the column I wished to work on. So now I'm going to press Ctrl Z or Command Z, depending on the system. And it brings me back to the previous. And now I use the find and replace tool again, but this time I highlight only column D. And I come here and I could either go straight to replace, since that's even what I'm interested in. And it brings me back here and I repeat it again. 15, change it to 15.5, replace all. And now it tells me we've made changes to 15 replacements. And notice one key thing. This 15 didn't change this time, but it changed every other information here to 15.5. So I could just now be randomly writing hours per month, 180 hours per month, 130 hours, 124 hours, 144 hours, 150 hours, 50 hours, 123 hours, 170, 160, 133, 122, 133, and 90 hours. Okay. Now, we've essentially gone through all the fundamentals on data entry and editing, but I want to show you one very useful tool which could come in handy depending on the kind of data sets you're working with. And this is the autocorrect tool. So the autocorrect tool can come in handy in several occasions depending on what context you wish to use it. To find the autocorrect tool, since I'm using a MacBook, I think the easiest way I would do that would be to go to the help and type auto. Once I even type the auto, it already brings out all the different words related to auto. And in this case, I'm looking for autocorrect. So that you click on the autocorrect options, it already guides you where to find it. Now you can go to the toolbar, I guess. Yes, toolbar, autocorrect options, and you click on autocorrect. Now, under the autocorrect options, there are already some checkboxes. So depending on the errors, you could decide which one to leave checked or which one not to leave checked. So for starters, capitalize names of day. We could test that, but I could also add manual autocorrect instances. So let's say the name of my company is Tech Media Maven, but I don't want to, because of the fact that in my document I might be repeating it so many times, I don't want to have to be typing it out in full. Tech Media Maven, Tech Media Maven, Tech Media Maven. I could leverage the autocorrect to write it in a faster manner. So I could put in the initial TMM, which stands for Tech Media Maven, and it's like anytime you see TMM, just replace it with Tech Media Maven and add that. There are already some existing autocorrect options here. So if you want the copyright, for starters, once you put this, it autocorrects it to the copyright symbol, and you could study all the respective options that you have available. But I'm showing you how to manually add your own. So in this case, TMM, I want to replace it with Tech Media Maven, and I click add, and we exit, and we want to test this out. So just come to a blank cell and we try it out. TMM, and I click enter. Voila. Let me try it again. TMM, enter. Voila. So you see, that is Excel made easy, and you can only find tips like this on this YouTube channel, the Tech Media Maven YouTube channel. You are most welcome. Yes. So I'll clear this content for now because we don't need it. And now, just to fine tune our data, I'm going to touch on some of the things we talked about in the first video, which speaks to formatting the cells. So yeah, I've created the header, but from the Outlook, you might not necessarily tell the difference between the header and the actual data. So I would like to differentiate it by formatting it differently. So I could click the entire row that speaks to the header. I could first of all start by increasing the font size to maybe 16. I could make it bold. I could even go as far as coloring the layout differently, but in this case I don't want to do that because I selected the entire row, so to color the entire row differently. Okay, let me just show you so that you understand how to avoid mistakes like this. So let's say I want to color the entire row green, see, and change the text to white. Now I'm looking at it and I'm like, whew, maybe what I intended to do wasn't to color the entire row green. I just wanted to color the selection area green and the text white. So I click undo, which is Ctrl Z, and I just select the selected cells that I am interested in. I might not mind all the header information being on bold, but I want just the selected part of it to be colored green. So I come back after selecting it and click on the green, and I click on the white. Okay. Now we're back to square one. Our information, some of it is showing, some of it is not showing. So remember, like I said, I could highlight all the cells, come to any line within the borderline and double click it, and it automatically adjusts. Okay. Doesn't this look good? Doesn't this look good? Well, we could take it a step further and try and isolate the table itself so that we know the table we're working with. So to do this, we're going to select the entire table, create a selection area around the table, and stop at where the data stops. You right click, and if you look at all these options and you keep going down, you see an option called the format cell option. So you click on the format cell option, and you see certain things that you can do to the cell. In this case, we're interested in the border because we want to demarcate the table from the rest of the sheet. So we select the border type we want. I want this, and I want the external borders to be surrounded with this thickness, and the internal borders, I feel it should be surrounded with this. So you click on that and you click OK, and voila, our table looks way better now. Okay, so I have shown you how to fundamentally, just a recap, do edits. You can edit data, input data, copy, paste, clear content, use the autofill to undo data, insert and delete rows and columns, adjust the column width depending on the text size, adjust the data through the find and replace, and also the autocorrect option. This is all we can take for now on the data entry and editing segment of this course. Stay tuned to the next video where we shall now dive into more complex aspects such as using the formulas, doing some fundamental analysis, calculations. For the purpose of consistency, we're still going to use this data set, and if there's any other data set that will be used, we'll also introduce it as the time goes on. But I'm going to make reference to these data sets since we all entered it together. And stay tuned to the next video. I look forward to seeing you. It's been a pleasure. And if this video has been able to give you value in any form, please subscribe, like, and share. Let it help someone else too as well. Also, leave a comment. You can tell me what you would like to know in Excel. We can work towards creating a video on it. Or if you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comment box. If you have any opinions about the course, any encouraging words, please also feel free to leave it in the comment box. And for now, Ikenna from Tech Media Maven is signing out. It's been a pleasure. Bye for now.